Happy Friday morning, everyone. I'm here with my friend Umesh. He is with Sensormatic, and he is an absolute expert on the art of RFID. And so, Umesh, thanks for joining us on Retail Corner, sir.
Thank you, Cole. You're very kind.
Don't let that get around. It'll ruin my reputation. So, Umesh, can you introduce us a little bit with Sensormatic and walk us through your CV? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. My full name is Umesh Cooduvalli, and I live in Florida, in Orlando, and I've been in the RFID space for about 2 decades. I've done pilots and rollouts in the US and in Europe and Asia. I've done factory solutions, RFID use cases in DCs, and also in stores. And I used to be an engineer for about 8.5 years.
Okay, then, so you have that technical mindset, yeah?
Yes, yeah. I have a master's in mechanical engineering, and then I got my MBA and switched to sales. Later on, as I learned that I wasn't very good as an engineer. I'm a people person.
Fair enough. It's left brain, yeah. Right brain kind of thing, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I sold robots for many years, in the Detroit area, and then I switched over to RFID about 15, 20 years back. And I've been in this space for a long time, and I know all the use cases, what it takes to make something happen that's useful to customers.
You know, people talk about RFID, and especially like you went to NRF, and our team went to NRF and everything. Everybody was talking about that RFID like it was new, but this technology has been around for 20 years,
for a long time,
maturing.
Yes,
And so, like, it's kind of exciting to see people actually taking advantage of it right now, like actually putting wheels on the road kind of thing.
And absolutely. There's a couple of things that is driving this, right? The key growth areas. There's some of the big retailers such as Walmart, Target. Mm-hmm. They all went live with RFID technology, and you have to really leverage the technology. You need to do item level tagging, meaning every item you sell in a category needs to have an RFID tag. The tags come in different forms, like RFID labels, hang tags, stickers, and sewn-in tags. There's all kinds of different formats that come in, and they usually carry a chip that we read. With barcodes, you need line of sight to actually see and scan it, whereas in RFID, you don't need the line of sight, so you can literally read 10,000 items.
It's just whatever's in the field. Yeah. And so, absolutely. So like I mentioned, you went to NRF, I went to NRF, and that was January though.
Yeah.
What's happened like last 6 months? What are we looking at that's just hot?
Yeah. So what's really happened is the growth is getting to be exponential. The main reason being some of the big retailers have done it, and now the suppliers to these retailers are looking at implementing RFID for their own benefit, which is very interesting because, let's say you're supplying to big retailers such as Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods or others, then they're expecting you to have RFID tags and everything on the products that you sell to them.
Just ready to rock and roll,
then you can use it for your own benefit. So that, and also there's compliance. You have to comply with certain standards, and you have to have the RFID tags on each item that you sell to these retailers. So it really benefits them to do the use cases that benefits their own company as well.
So it's kind of like the technology is swimming upstream instead of the usual way. It's going up to the supplier, it's going up to the manufacturers. And so
absolutely, it's starting from the manufacturer. Some of these retailers are buying from 200, 300 factories. All over the world, and they want everything tagged where they manufacture the product. They call it source tagging. That's where the key benefit is, right? So once you tag it, then you can start tracking it from then on.
Well, so that's absolutely helping because more and more stores, more and more companies, it's not the brick and mortar store that's selling it. They're selling it out of the DC. They're selling it out of omni-channel. They're selling it further and further up that supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the customer. And so, like, can you kind of tell me? I love specifics. So do you have a use case, or do you have an example where like a retailer actually made that difference?
Yeah, absolutely. There are several retailers who have made that difference. You know, if you look on the Sensormatic website, you'll see many use cases, case studies that we have published, and a lot of the logos that we carry, and how it's helping retailers. Really, there's three key areas. One is the stores. You know, let's say you're a retailer, you have 500 stores across the nation. How do you know what do you have in each sales floor, each back room, or an offsite, or a basement that is actually supplying to that, you know, replenishing to the sales floor? So how do you manage what you want to have? What's your planogram? What's your model stock compliance? So typically what happens is, in fashion retailers especially, what you don't show, you don't sell. So they have a compliance.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, these are the SKUs I must show at all times on the sales floor. So so they set that level, you know, saying I need to have at least 5 of these SKUs on the sales floor, for example. And when it goes to say 4, you know, below that threshold, our app kicks in and says, hey, you have it in the back room, bring it to the sales floor. So that's a huge benefit, you know. So there's never out of stocks, or you know, customers don't walk in and say, well, I don't see what I'm looking for. I don't.
I was looking for a medium, but they're not going to search the back, you know.
Yeah, or they may just walk out and not even asking anyone, you know. So so that kind of, and the other benefit is, you know, not every store is the same, right? So let's say you have 500 stores. A store in Orlando is selling different styles and sizes than a store in Alaska or something. It's
very different markets. Yeah. Very different markets.
Yeah. So you need to manage the inventory really well. And the other, and some of the key benefits that retailers look for in stores is that they do physical, you know, inventory. They call it PI.
Oh, sure.
You know, once a year, a couple of times a year, they actually, you know, have people actually physically count every single item they have in the store.
Sure.
That takes a lot of time and effort. But with RFID, you can do cycle counting once a week, or even more than once a week. That's more than 50 times more than what you would normally do manually.
A little more accurate, yeah.
So, and you're always comparing to what you have in your system to what you actually have. So you start closing those gaps. So yeah,
like we were talking about earlier, it's not about what you can see. It's not about what's in front of you, because I mean, I've done cycle counts on all different types of products, but like when you go to do like a cosmetics cycle count or something like that, you're counting what's on the shelf right there. You're doing right there. Yeah. But with RFID, you can see if that cosmetic ended up in toys, if it ended up in grocery across the store somehow. And
so, absolutely. You know, so in terms of adoption, what's happened is, you know, you see apparel, which adapted it a long time ago, and that adoption is increasing, and footwear too. You know, if you just think of how many sizes, colors, and everything, you know, in a shoe store, it's very complex to manage inventory when the product SKU and complexity is very high. So that's where the technology comes into play, and it helps you in managing the inventory, you know. And if you look at t-shirts, how many sizes, you know, there's extra small, medium, so, and how many do you want to keep? You know, how often are you selling those? What's your dwell time? All of those things so come into play. So now what's happening is the technology is being adopted. Others are looking into it, like such as QSR, you know, quick serve restaurants, or
really,
you know, and health and beauty is another category that is starting to look at and adopt it, because there's a lot of complexity in inventory management there.
So yeah, we mentioned cosmetics. We mentioned health and beauty. Those go hand in hand with asset protection. I mean,
Yeah.
I cut my teeth in asset protection in retail a long time ago, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but as an asset protection mindset, like this has got to be a game changer.
Oh, it's huge. Like Sensormatic, the history is of Sensormatic is from loss prevention, right? And sure. We have grown that portfolio over the years significantly. And we do with RFID, we call it shrink analyzer. Basically, what we do is we put an RFID reader at the POS and we mark items as sold as customers are paying for it. And then if, for example, you bought 4 items and you actually took out 5 and you didn't pay for the one, and it actually alarms at the gate. We put overhead readers, or pedestals, and there are other things that we use in terms of RFID readers that will alert the store associates. We can even alarm, it depends on the retailer's
making it easier for everybody.
Yeah. And we do a lot in terms of, reducing ORC, organized retail crime.
Sure.
And we also do a lot with, video analytics and things like that. So exactly at what time did something happen, that incident, when was it stolen, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you've got the physical theft and everything else like that. You've got the external loss. This must be helped with internal loss as well, like at the DCs with claims. I mean, how are we looking at that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things, they call it sweethearting, where, an associate may be, involved in a certain transaction where several things got stolen. And, analytics, there's a lot of intelligence built into it to detect those things and alert them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So are you seeing these? You're seeing that at the store level. How are we stopping loss at the DC level? With this
at the DC, there's doctor portals that we use. In the DCs, if you look at in the stores, the main use cases are cycle counting for inventory management, and then replenishment. That is backroom to sales floor replenishment, and also replenishing from the DC to the stores effectively, and receiving them with RFID enabled receiving. We call it guided receiving. So all of that really helps.
It probably cuts that process time for receiving into nothing.
Absolutely. I mean, cycle counting is actually 26 times more efficient or faster than physical cycle counting. 26 times, and receiving process.
Only 26 times more.
And the receiving becomes about 6 times more efficient. So because a lot of the retailers replenish to each store every day. So if you're replenishing even 5-6 times a week, every single day you're replenishing, and that so each store benefits from all these efficiencies. Okay. And in both is buy online, pick up in store, that really helps, because there's another function called Geiger function, where you can find things easily with an RFID handheld device. So if you scan an item and you're looking for it, and it beeps louder and louder as you get closer to that item.
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, so you walk into an Adidas store or any store, you ask for a particular size or a SKU that's not there, and you see the associate finding it with that Geiger function. So it's phenomenal. It's very helpful. And then also in a online, order comes in and the store associate is looking for it, and if they don't hear a single beep, they know it's not there. And they can pass that order to another store that can fulfill that's nearby. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So your omni cancel rates goes down significantly. And we're talking about the DC solutions, right? So in the DCs, some of the main use cases I'll talk about is you're ordering from factories.
Sure.
So how do you know what you ordered is what you actually got? So that's called receiving, receiving audit.
Sure.
So we do the receiving audit against the ASNs. We check every single carton that is going through by using RFID tunnels. And we also do audit stations, etc., to verify what you ordered is what you got and reconcile against the ASNs.
And so, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, your claims are just reduced ridiculously, I would think.
Yeah, because your chargebacks and everything, what you have to do, the paperwork, all of that gets reduced significantly. So you start gaining efficiencies. And for that, you need to be source tagged, meaning you have already told your factories to do the RFID tagging, and they're shipping cartons with an LPN, a license plate number for the carton that we use. And when it comes to the DCs, in the receiving process. And the second use case in the DC that's very popular is pack audit. So because the DCs will get orders from hundreds of stores, right, and wholesalers and others. So not every order is the same. So every order they count is a different orders for different things.
And QA can only open so many packages a day, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so as you're packing, to the order that you receive, we check against the order and reconcile against it in real time as you're as you're putting it in the carton, what the orders are. It turns green or yellow if it's too much, or if an item is missing, it turns red. So we actually give a visual cue to the operator. Literally is showing on the screen whether whether he's doing, he or she is doing it right or wrong. Giving real-time feedback. So you can fix, the idea is to fix errors as upfront as you can. So it doesn't flow through, the supply chain, because
anything to keep it from getting to the customer. Yeah,
exactly. Then they're unhappy, they won't come back. So you got to catch the errors as upfront as you can. And the third use case that's most popular in DCs is outbound verification. So before it goes out the door, you verify what the orders are, correct, accurate, before it leaves the door. So we do that also with RFID tunnels or doctor portals and other ways of doing it. And it also gives
you. And you're talking about, like, when you say doctor portals and things like that, it's pallets at a time. It's not.
Yes. Yeah.
It's pallets. It's not single items or anything else. It is the whole forklift is rolling through that thing.
Yes. And what we typically do is we check at the carton level even before it gets palletized. Because again, the idea is to catch errors as upfront as you can. So earlier you catch errors and fix them, better off you are. And it's also faster and more efficient. So in the outbound, we also capture every single EPC that went out the door. So you have an audit trail of what you ship to your customers for compliance.
Okay.
So that there's no, fines.
No arguing about it.
Yes. Yeah. That's a key use case. You're talking, savings in millions of dollars.
Easily.
In each DC. And in DC use cases, typically, throughput is key, because, every person who is running, like a VP of supply chain or people who are in charge of the DCs, you ask them, they're all measured on throughput, because the more they ship out and accurately, better off they are, right? Fulfilling orders faster, but not just faster, but more accurately. And that's where RFID helps.
That makes sense. So you are in this RFID fight every single day. You're in the articles reading about it. You're in the technology behind it. Can you tell me what's next? Can you tell me what's going to happen with RFID? Because it's been evolving for 20 years. What's its next?
Yeah, so the adoption is starting to increase, and the pace of adoption is accelerating. And there's a lot more new use cases, higher level use cases coming up, such as shrink analytics that I mentioned, and also self-checkout. That's a big one. You go to a store like Uniqlo, say
Sure.
in Times Square or anywhere, so you put all the items you want to buy in a basket, and you just go. You put the basket in there, it just lights up. It reads everything, you pay, and you walk out. There's no standing in line. It's a line buster. It's huge, and that's a very good customer experience use case.
Absolutely.
It's delightful, right? I mean, actually, my daughter went to a Uniqlo with her friend and bought something, and she was shocked that as soon as she went to pay for it, everything just lit up, like no standing in line. It's amazing. So that some of the retailers are doing it, and a lot of them are 100% RFID tagged, because every single item you buy in the
Sure.
store is already tagged, so there's no need to worry about non-tagged items. So so the retailers who are deploying, they'll always start with basic use cases that give them the biggest bang for the buck.
Sure.
Obviously. So I always say crawl, walk, and run. So you do the cycle counting, replenishment, Geiger function, finding things, those kinds of things, basic use cases first. So it's kind of like putting the foundation in a house. You put the foundation, then you build the walls, and then you put the roof. You don't start with the high-end use cases, but you start with the basic use cases that give you the fastest ROI, and you got your return on investment very quick. Usually the ROI is within 6 months, even for large, deployments, like even if you're deploying for 1,000 stores. So it's just phenomenal. So by having item level accuracy at 99% plus levels, if you're not doing RFID, you can expect to have maybe about 70%, 65, 70% doing physical counting and all of that. So you have a 25-point jump in accuracy. That is phenomenal.
That level of accuracy, it sends my asset protection spine here.
Yeah, it is huge. So what does that translate to?
Right.
Is the key, right? What does it it translates to sales uplift, because by having what your customers need at all times, and exactly what you have, and you're having all of your operations run like a well-oiled machine, your sales start to go up. And the other use case that
all the oars in the boat go the same direction.
Yes, absolutely, and enterprise-wide, right? Every store you can monitor. You can say, okay, store number 527 didn't do cycle counting last week. You have that kind of visibility on your dashboard.
That's a quick call. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe they need training or whatever, something happened, whatever, so you as a CTO or a CEO or VP of store ops, you have that kind of visibility at your fingertips that you didn't have before. So that's
I want to ask you a separate future question. We've seen RFID evolve and everything else like that. It used to be, it's only high-end items, it's only the high-price stuff, and then it moved into the high-loss stuff, and now it's becoming more and more prevalent throughout the store. Is there a sector of the store? Is there a sector of retail that it just hasn't caught on yet?
Yeah, so that would be like a lot of metal content, metal packages, because RFID doesn't work so well but some of the companies are developing tags that work on metal that are not too expensive, and that is starting to happen. And also on liquids, because the read range goes down, so you have to get closer to the product.
Sure, anytime a wave goes through a liquid.
Yeah, so that's what is happening. But there are workarounds that are happening already, in that space, particularly health and beauty, right? So there are specialized products for that, like, for perfumes, liquid content, things like that. And also very small tags, for pencils, things like that, are being developed now. So, yeah, and then also you hit on a good point, like at what price point do you want to put an RFID tag? Now it really depends on what profit you make on that item, not so much on not the selling price.
Sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that, So, if, for example, like you walk into like a Target, for example, near your house, they may be selling an item like a T-shirt for like $7. They will have an RFID tag on it. For an item that
Because it's
sells,
worth it. Yeah.
it's worth it because they want to manage the inventory really well and efficiently.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're bumping up against our time limit here. I have one more question for you. It's a question that I ask everybody. So if you could travel back in time and talk to yourself at the very beginning of your career, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Wow, that's a deep question.
I'm a deep guy. What do you say?
I actually have an observation on that. I think we all go to school and unless like you try to study and be a doctor or something, you won't stay in that profession, right? I've seen people who majored in something, but what they're doing today is completely different.
Oh, sure.
And you may ask, why is that? Because as we grow, as we start working, we start to learn what we are good at, and we start to pursue that, and we also start seeing success because we're doing well, because we love what we do.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is, find out what you really love to do and do it. The sooner the better. Sometimes it takes longer for some people. Sometimes some people can do it faster.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I know people that are in their 60s and they're still trying to find what they love. So,
good luck.
And so,
yes,
but it's about looking. It's about searching to find what you love. That's great advice.
Thank you.
I wish I had known that back then. It's good stuff. Well, Umesh, I can't thank you enough for being part of the Retail Corner, man. And
thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And so, we'll try to get you on in a couple months to kind of see, because this is a quickly changing topic, and so we'll try to maybe bring you back a couple times before Christmas and kind of see how things are changing.
Happy to be
all right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
If you would like to be featured on our podcast, please email us at podcast@retailcorner.live or visit our website, retailcorner.live. Looking forward to having you as our guest on our podcast, and thank you so much for listening.